Today is March 18th, 2025. My name is Melissa Ackerman, and I will be interviewing Jeanette Pincus about her time at Jewish Family Service as an employee. How are you today, Jeanette?
I'm doing great, thank you.
How did you come to work for JFS?
Well, I have a little bit of a story that involves you, so that I wanted to share. I remember probably 1977, the two of us are sitting in the sorority house at SDT and deciding what we're going to do with our lives. And I decided to go into social work, and you decided to go into business. We both ended up being involved with Jewish Family Service about the same time. You were already on the board, and I was coming in right after having a baby in 1983, and I always wanted to work in the Jewish communal field because I had come from Austin, also working there in the Jewish community, and I got hired in the vocational department that just had opened up. The Jewish Vocational Counseling Services had been they ended it, the program.
That was a separate agency, wasn't it?
Separate agency, and it was decided that they were no longer going to be in existence, and Jewish Family Service needed to take it on. So Camille Kramer had been hired 2 months before me, and I was her employee. And I was very excited to find a job in the Jewish community because that had really been my dream, to work in the Jewish communal field, and I was working in other areas instead in the community.
Okay. And what were some of the other things you did while you were with the agency?
When I started with this program, vocational services, the Russians had also started coming in, and we were trying to also help them find positions. And it was very challenging because a lot of these Russians, they were coming at where they were coming from, they were doctors, engineers, and things like that, and here we are giving them jobs as being baggers in grocery stores and things like that because they didn't have the credentials here. So it was a very challenging thing for that also. What also in this program, it was for the hard to employ. That's why they were coming to us. It just wasn't that they couldn't find jobs on their own. So some of these also had mental challenges. They were also emotional challenges that they weren't. We were asking employers to take a chance in employing these. So it was a very interesting job for me to go out into the Jewish and non-Jewish community and asking them to interview our
people and to get them jobs with that. Mm-hmm. And did you go on site to help train them or make sure they got appropriate training for their jobs?
No, we did not with that. We just would clear to make sure that it was something that they could handle.
Mm-hmm. What location was Jewish Family Service in at the time you first started working?
Yes, the first time I started working, I got to work in the basement of the Federation building, and with the Federation on the top floor, and we were all on the bottom floor.
And that was the vocational, when you were doing the vocational part? Okay. Mm-hmm. And what was your background?
My background is I have a master's degree in social work, and licensed as an advanced clinical practitioner. And I had worked with the epilepsy program in San Antonio, where I was also helping people find jobs. There was a federally funded program. And then I had also worked for the Department of Labor when I first came back here before I got to work at JFS, working with the employees there, and I guess more human relationships and how they would also work on their jobs to improve their job performance there.
Were you involved in any of the lay committees when you were working?
The vocational department had a committee that they worked at, and the ones that I remember working with is Harriet Gross and Stan Rabin were ones that I just stood out for me that I'll never forget that I got to work with. And also Rena Silverberg was active on the board, and I remember also getting an opportunity to work with her.
Mm-hmm. What programs and services began or stopped or evolved during the time of your employment?
What happened was, when I started with them, I worked full-time, and at that first time I was with them, I was totally working with the vocational department. I left for a while and had a baby, and then came back as a part-time employee And that was a location when it was now Alpha and Coit. And there was a position open up in the gerontology department. So I got to work with Bunny Radman and Louise Gold and Debbie Weiner. And at that time I was working more of going into people's homes that we were trying to make sure that these seniors were able to live on their own. So we were helping with food, the Friendly Visitor Program that they would have if they needed that.
Meals on Wheels, were they qualifying for that?
If they Meals on Wheels, that they needed help with financial services for them to keep up with that. If they needed counseling services, we were able to start providing that. Medicare was starting to pay us as social workers to do that for them. So I was doing that. And what was interesting about that is most of the people that I was working with at the time, they weren't the ones that were living like in the North Dallas area. These are the ones that were living in remote areas. They were living in areas that maybe weren't feeling as safe. And the old parts of the community are just way out. They were not really connected with the Jewish community, a lot of them were. And sometimes these are the ones who we would get phone calls from family members that lived outside of this community, or they were found because they would have gone to another social service agency or they'd been in a hospital and that they had been notified with that. So at the time, I would say some of the areas were interesting. I was given MACE as part of my thing of going out for these home visits. So I would say it was a little bit challenging at those times. My concern is having them stay where they were. And if we did feel like we needed to move them, of the opportunities financially and of what help that they needed to be moved.
Did you coordinate with Golden Acres or HUD during that time?
Those actually, Golden Acres, I would say yes. Most of these people were not eligible for a HUD even at that time. So a lot of it was either maybe going into a nursing home or that we would actually help them move to maybe family members that live outside of the community. During this time too, because of my interest in other things, I was now working under Michael Fleischer. So he knew that I had experience doing programs. I like to talk in front of people. So I did get to do dealing with adolescents with Temple Shalom. I did a 6-week program with them that was a lot of fun. And also what was happening too is we were going out to the community and trying to do more programming with synagogues and temples. So I also had an opportunity to do a program on people that were newer to the community that were trying to adjust to being in Dallas. You know, our community, the Dallas Jewish community, is old. We've been here a long time. People are very tight. And the 3 main synagogue temple that we had, they were there. A lot of newer people that were coming into Dallas were moving into more Temple Shalom, Beth Torah, and things like that, and they were newer to the community. So I got to do a program with them too, is getting to know the Dallas Jewish community sooner. I left again, I'd say for a few years. I actually came to work for Jewish Family Service 4 times. And when I went back again the 3rd time, I would say we're getting more into the 90s, and I had an opportunity to take over a Parkinson's support group that JFS was going with the Dallas Parkinson's Association, and so that was a weekly support group for the caregivers, and it was more of a chance while the person that had the Parkinson's was getting physical therapy. I was with the caregivers talking, and this was I say more of a personal thing for me, is because while I was doing it, my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but I was not aware of seeing all the signs as here I am working with them. So it was one of those things. Actually, the last time I left Jewish Family Service was after about 17 years of working for them. I was now helping take care of my father with that.
So each of the 4 times you left and came back, you had a different position.
A lot of times it seemed like I was doing still a lot with gerontology, but the last time, I would say, why the last time? Because my son was getting bar mitzvah. I got an opportunity to do engaged couples workshops, and that was like one of my highlight of getting to work at Jewish Family Service. We were getting some information that a lot of it was coming from the Baptist community, that they were having these 6-week workshops where the couples had to go through this in order for them to get married. So I got trained in this special, I would say an assessment that we would have done, and I got to develop a 6-week program. So I would say the number of people that went through, I got to do this for, I would say it was for 2 to 3 years, and these people now that were in this program, they're in their late 50s.
Are they still married?
Well, this is interesting. What we're finding out statistically at the time I was doing this, the divorce rate was at 50%. In the Jewish community, it was actually, we were still quite high. We were at 40% people. But I have to say, I've looked back at what's happened. I don't know if it made that, I don't know if it made that much of a difference, but there were a number of people that went through my program that did get divorced.
But probably a lot are still married.
Yes, I'll still a lot married.
You can take credit for that.
I can take credit, and I do get to see them, and now their kids are like in college and now are getting married. But it really was a very enjoyable part for me, because I got to work with the rabbis at the Conservative and the Reformed. It was a joint program with us.
The congregation, the rabbis were
part of it.
As part of their ability, their willingness to marry them. They had to go through the program.
And what we had is the rabbis would take turns. That we would have them come speak about the ceremony. We also had them. We had different a part of our community also. We had information about mikveh and financial. We had an accountant come in, and then we also did more of intercommunications.
What were some of the initiatives to increase interest in Jewish Family Service and its mission during your time at the agency?
That's a really good question. I feel like because I got to come and go, which a lot of people didn't get to do, I was really noticing the changes that were happening at Jewish Family Service, that we were moving because the community was moving and things were changing. When I had gotten there, a lot of it had been about taking care of the Russians that were coming in, and also we had the time of that. We also had. I wouldn't call it the boat people, but there was another group that was coming through. The Asians were coming through that we also started helping. They were outside of our Jewish community, so we had the volunteers, and we knew how to set things up. And so I was seeing that we were starting to go out more into the community. Also, I was noticing our food bank had increased, because when I had started, we were in a closet in the basement of Federation, and it had really started growing, and that we were also opening it up to the community with that too, and it just looked like there was a lot of growth. I know more counselors were being hired. We were also going more into the schools that I had noticed that we hadn't done before for counseling.
Doing what kind of thing?
Counseling, because there were more Jewish day schools developing, and that these counselors were going in to help with that.
Were they doing anything with special needs or anything like that at that time?
This is what I'm recalling, that I feel like it was starting to happen too, because I remember Carmen Michaels being in the office, but I wasn't directly involved with that.
In the 90s when you were working there?
In the
who were the key staff during your tenure? You've mentioned a lot of people, but was there anybody else that you want to?
Yes. When I would say there was a number of programs that were going on that I also saw they continued from the 80s to the 90s. Sherry Portwood was head of our clinical department at the time. She also we had the adoption program that was there, and as active as it was, that tended to not be as active as we had, as more babies were not being there to be
Jewish
adopted.
babies or families
Yeah.
that were looking to adopt?
I think there was always families looking to adopt. I think it was more of the Jewish babies that
Or not
have
available.
done that. Right. Also, as I mentioned before, there was a wonderful program, it was a Big PAL program, that also that when people were going in for clinical counseling, and a lot of them, they were divorced parents, or they were seeing something was happening, there was a parent that wasn't available, that this program developed, like the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and that that was something that I was very proud of, that the agency had seen a need for it, and that it had worked on it. That was with Judy Minkin. I got to room because I was part-time at the time with Joni Cohan, and there was a guardianship program, and that was an initiative that came on because they were finding out there was a need for elderly people that had no one to take care of them, and that JFS would legally go into the court and take them on and make sure that all their needs were being met financially and everything else with that.
Yes. Do you know if that program still continues to
I
today?
believe that it is not.
Okay.
And, it was wonderful working like with Susay and Janine Pullman. The volunteer component of JFS I don't think could work as well as it has been because of have so many wonderful volunteers. And synagogues and temples and organizations that come in to help. It was always something that I admired and felt so much for with the community. Michael Fleischer, as I mentioned, was the director most of the time that I was there, and I got to work with Arnie Marks at the beginning of my start. He's the one that hired me. He hired me with a little bit of doubt because he told me he didn't like to hire people that were local.
Because they had connections?
They had connections, and I did understand that at one time because I really could not go into the waiting room because
you saw too many people that you knew? I
did see people, and it did make a difference for me actually of my being active in the community in general. I like to be on other boards and things like that because I had worked while I was continually working at JFS.
Is there any particular one highlight that you have not shared that you'd like to tell us about? Something that you're particularly proud of?
No, I think I mentioned everything. I really enjoyed working there a lot. I think it was, this was my dream to work in the Jewish community, and I got to do it. And I think the opportunity that I got to work in so many different areas in Jewish Family Service was also nice. It's just a wonderful group of people. The staff that works there, their heart is really in it, and everybody else that volunteers, the people on the committees and everything, it's just a wonderful place to work.
Is there anything about JFS that's not commonly known that you would want the community to know?
That is a great question. I feel that Jewish Family Service has really gotten out there that our community does know about them, Jewish and non-Jewish. But it's amazing to me how they've grown. It's amazing to me from what I knew of them and what it is today. It's fabulous.
Can you describe the value of Jewish Family Service to the Dallas Jewish community?
And that's a really good question too that I feel is important. That it is such a value to our community that what we do. And I also feel like Todd Shannon mentioned it as he's a past president, is what really has been wonderful about Jewish Family Service is they are able to, I feel like they were able to change as life and whatever's going on, that they know how to change with the times. What needs that need to be done, they go for it and they do it and they take chances and opportunities for it, and it's fabulous.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.